How's it going, everybody? My name is Brian Pelicano, and as you probably know, I'm normally the high school youth minister and confirmation coordinator. However, we find ourselves with me leading the 7th and 8th grade EDGE program this year, which I love. It's going to be an awesome year. I hope you agree. But I do need to make sure that everybody knows what's going on this year and is on the same page so we can avoid some of the hardships and obstacles that might come from people not being in the know now that I've started leading it and we've made a couple of changes, for instance, the 7th and 8th grade being combined. But that also leaves us with a much earlier end date, which hopefully you'll like, which is March 1st. You can find the calendar down below in this email, so hopefully that suits you well. But I just want to touch on a couple quick things before I get into the know-hows. There was this young man, his name was Varun, and he was raised in a Hindu household and never brought up in any other sort of exposition to the Catholic faith, let alone Christian faiths. And when he moved from India to the Middle East to Barbados and then finally to the U.S., he was kind of blown away by all of the different religions that he saw throughout the country. And he ended up going to college at the University of Vermont, and he had a friend who kept inviting him to Eucharistic adoration, which is where you adore Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in the Eucharist. And it's just a great time for you to pray. And he was invited, and he was invited, and he was invited, and kept saying no. And then finally, there was this event where there was music going on, and his friend was playing the music, so he decided to give it a shot to go support his friend, not knowing what he was in for. So he showed up, the lights were dimmed, the Eucharist was uplit, all this stuff was going on, and so he sat down to pray. And his friend just thought he was going to sit there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But 20 minutes went by, 30 minutes went by, 45 minutes went by. He wasn't leaving. He ended up staying for the entire event. Comes out at the end and tells his friend, "I've felt more peace than I have ever felt in my entire life. Where can I find this?" And his friend said, "This happens every week. Feel free to come back." So the next week came along, and he shows up again, stays the entire adoration. Next week comes along, shows up again, stays the entire adoration, and then some. He finally talks to the priest and gets his hand on a Q&A form of the basic beliefs of the Catholic Church. Takes that hiking with him through the Himalayas over winter break, comes back, meets with the chaplain again, and decides he's going to become Catholic. This friend was actually my friend, my teammate in college where I ran cross country and track. He was my teammate, and now I can not only call him my teammate and my best man at my wedding, but I can also call him my godson. So I was his confirmation sponsor, I was his godfather for his baptism, and we're still best friends to this day. He converted to the faith in the spring of 2013, and he's been a devout Catholic ever since. Now, a radical change like this doesn't happen because of something I did or something that someone told him or convinced him of. This change happened because he encountered Jesus as a real person. It wasn't until he met Jesus in the Eucharist, in adoration, that he was convinced that Jesus is real and truly present, active in our lives. This is the same Jesus that we're going to meet this year. I want you to know that this is not just a regular religious ed class like it's been in grades 1 through 6. 7th and 8th grade is now a mix between youth ministry and youth group and religious ed. So they'll get the content, they'll get all the catechesis, but what's more important is that they're building relationships with each other, with their teachers, with me, but most importantly with the Lord. So Jesus has a specific plan for your teenager, and he's encouraged you to sign up your teenager for EDGE this year. I want you to know that. But he also has a plan for you as parents. The child's investment is clear. Your kid's investment, they're showing up, they're getting picked up at the end, they're here for 10 classes out of the year, and then next year, if you're in 7th grade going into 8th grade, it'll be the same thing. If you're in 8th grade going into confirmation, that's a whole nother stage of the game. But your investment in their life and in this program is going to be that pivotal factor. And I'll explain what I mean. Most of us, definitely myself included being a runner, have had to watch our weight at some point in time. Whether it's, just to look good for a certain date or beach season, or whether you're just trying to get a little bit healthier. The doctor told you have to lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds or this or that. But what does it take to lose weight? It doesn't just take this one decision where, all right, I'm going to lose weight now. Let's do it. It takes a certain amount of commitment on your part to plan out how you're going to diet, what foods you're going to avoid. It takes planning on how long am I going to do this? How much weight am I going to try to lose per week? Which means how many calories do I have to burn or go in a deficit of this day? And then you have to plan out for obstacles. What if I'm going to a wedding and everybody's having cake? Or what if I'm going out to dinner and there's mostly fatty, calorie-dense stuff on the menu? How are you going to battle these temptations to have setbacks? All these things for weight loss can be sort of applied to the faith life. How are you going to encourage your kids when your kids don't want to come to Mass? How are you going to pray with your kids when you have a day full of stuff? If you haven't been going to Mass, if you haven't been praying with your kids, if you aren't exemplifying what it means to be a true Catholic, this is your opportunity to start. My parents growing up, I didn't pray with my family until I was a senior in college. So if that's you, if that's your family situation where you're not praying, you're not saying grace before meals, you're not going to Mass regularly, trust me, I can relate. That was where I grew up. That's how I grew up. But this is a great chance to start because your kids are entering more and more so now, the age where their friends are going to be doing things and experimenting with their bodies. There's peer pressures in new ways with drugs and drinking underage, even in 7th and 8th grade, that you might not know is present. For instance, the average age right now with boys being exposed to pornography or explicit sexual content is 9 years old. 9! That's insane! So what I'm trying to get at is your role has never been so important as it is right now, because fathers and mothers in the family unit are the primary Catholic example. It's not me, it's not your priest, it's not your grandparents or this or that or the other thing, it's you and your spouse. Some statistic to show you is that 90% of fathers who go to Mass make prayer a daily part of their life and follow the faith and encourage their kids in faith. The kids will practice as adults 90% of the time. For mothers, though, the portion of kids that aren't practicing because of their fathers, an additional 40% of kids that have a mother that's a practicing Catholic will also grow up to be practicing Catholics themselves. So that's 90% for the fathers, and then on top of that, an additional 40% for the mothers. You parents have such a vital role to play in their faith journey. And when kids succeed at holiness, which is what we're trying to have them do here, they will change the world. An example for you is this 14-year-old boy named Jose. His name was Jose Sanchez del Rio. He was born in the early 20th century, and at 14, he was arrested for being part of this Catholic practicing group. And before his parents could bail him out of prison, the guards of the prison shaved the bottoms of his feet and had him walking through the center of town. And they kept repeating to him, after beatings and all kinds of stuff, all you have to say, kid, is death to Christ the King, and we'll let you go home. Just say that, we'll go home scot-free. He shouts, Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King. And every time that they say, all you have to say is death to Christ the King and you can go home, he shouts even louder, Viva Cristo Rey. So finally they bring him to the end of this march and they put him in front of a firing squad. And they say, "Kid, this is your last chance. Either say death to Christ the King or we're going to kill you." And he just shouts, his arms spread out, "Viva Cristo Rey." Then he wipes the bottoms of his feet, paints a cross on the ground with his own blood, and kisses the base of the cross. He was killed for his faith that day at 14. And so many thousands of people have prayed to him through the ages. This was in 1928 he died, so not even 100 years ago. People are dying all over the world for their faith, not because of something that a family member does for them, but because they've encountered the love of Christ active in their lives and in their hearts. So that's what we're doing here in this program.